I'm very happy to be here this morning with you. Actually, I'm not from the University of Lausanne. I'm from the nursing school, but doesn't matter really. Next slide, please. So today, on behalf of the whole team that worked on this use in Switzerland of the Scirocco tool, I'll focus on the contextual element, because Switzerland is in the middle of Europe, but we are not in Europe. And I'll focus also on the method and on the adjustment we made of your tool to survey our whole country. Next slide, please. So basically, this is Switzerland, and Switzerland is actually a federal country with 26 cantonal health systems, which means that we have 26 health ministries and a very large heterogeneity of cantons. We also have a cultural heterogeneity in the way that we have a large German-speaking part of Switzerland, which is orange on the screen, a smaller part which is French-speaking, the blue one, and an even smaller part which is Italian-speaking. So this cultural diversity is very important to understand when understanding Switzerland. A couple of years, no, please, yeah. A couple of years ago, we made a survey trying to identify how many integrated care initiatives we had in Switzerland. And actually we found quite a lot, which it was actually quite a surprise. We found 155, but as you can see, do not look into the details, but the various colors of the various cantons actually represent the number of initiatives. So you can see that there are cantons, the darker ones, who are very active in integrated care, and some of them who are very, maybe a kind of lagging behind. So this heterogeneity is very interesting to keep in mind when analyzing our Scirocco results. And you might have heard that Switzerland is fragmented, not because only of the cantons, but the whole health systems is fragmented because of the governance. There are specific roles between the federal level and the cantonal level. The institutions are also very fragmented, the professions and the financing aspects are also fragmented. So these very broad systemic problems did appear actually in our Scirocco survey. Well, I'll come back to this later. Next slide, please. So basically what we did is we took your existing Scirocco English version, we translated it, and that we had to make some cultural adaptation, especially where you talk about centralization, because this doesn't make sense in the Swiss context. We pre-tested this with a dozen of persons, and then adjusted this into a last Scirocco version, German and French versions. And then we took your existing Italian version and adapted it with our German and French versions. This gave us 3 versions. Next, please. So basically, the difference between what we did and what you usually did, now I understand that the usual did is not the truth, because everybody uses the Scirocco process on its own, but basically the standard process is really interactive, iterative, and consensus-like, while we actually did not put in any interaction or any consensus process into our survey. It was really an online survey. Individuals could make it on their own. Maybe they discussed it with their colleagues or friends, but I don't think so. And we also developed a survey independent from the Scirocco platform. Instead of targeting a specific group of stakeholders, context specific, for instance, we really sent it out to about 5,500 stakeholders. Stakeholders we knew that they were involved in integrated care initiatives, or people we didn't know whether they were involved in integrated care initiatives or whether they knew anything about integrated care actually. Next slide, please. This is why actually we got some heterogeneous respondent characteristics. So actually only 1/6 of the people we asked did answer the survey. We had a majority of healthcare providers, but also quite a lot of directors of institutions, which is quite interesting because, as I said just before, the Scirocco tool is very much about understanding a system. So if you have healthcare providers, maybe they do understand about the system, but probably they more understand about the micro level or maybe meso level, but not the macro level. And when you're discussing with the directors, maybe they do understand about the macro levels or meso levels, but have no idea whatsoever about what's happening on the ground. So all these people, the heterogeneity of these people will come back into the results when I show them later on. About the same problems with professional activities, university, hospitals, independent people. As I said, we have this heterogeneity of culture, which also appears in the results. And we actually added a question to make sure we knew more or less who had answered the survey. And we can see that about half of the respondents were implicated in integrated care, which means that there are people that do not really know about integrated care, and this might have an impact on their answers. And you also see that a vast majority of respondents were convinced that the Swiss healthcare systems needed change. So our colleague from Flanders said before that there was this hypothetical attribution bias somewhere, and I guess we also had this problem in our respondents. You have actually the results is that the maturity for integrated care in Switzerland is thought to be quite low. The lowest actually is funding. For funding, the means are around 1, and the highest is for health, but actually only the mean is 2.7, so not very high indeed, and most results turn around means of 2. But what I think is very interesting for you is this dispersion, and this is what I drew on these graphs with my dotted lines, the green ones, the purple ones, is that this dispersion is very strange, and we can't guess. I mean, our hypothesis is that the people that were able to answered with various positions. We actually asked them, please assess the maturity of Switzerland as a whole. But as we know, probably people didn't really make the difference between their local context and the global context, which is Switzerland. And this might explain the dispersion, especially for the e-health services and the readiness to change. Another interesting point is probably the removal of inhibitor, where people are more ready to have a consensus, although they didn't speak together. Another interesting issue is that we did this survey in 2019, and before actually a new federal strategy in Switzerland was published. And this new federal strategy is very much targeting coordinated care, which is the way our federal level talks about integrated care. And maybe, you know, the maturity aspect of structure and governance has improved, because it was very, very low, like 0 at the time. So maybe this has improved, but this is really a hypothesis. So please, next slide. Oh, I'm doing it actually. Sorry. So the discussion is following. What are the advantages of an online survey? Well, I would say that potentially we can have more respondents. We sent it out to 5,500 people. We received 640 responses. Is that a good point or not? We don't know, but at least we got 600, more than 600 answers. Maybe this enables a broader maturity assessment, maybe. And of course, the data collection is easy, or you get the answers, and you don't need to transmit the transcriptions like our colleagues who perform these interviews. You don't need to send out interviewers to people, and etc. The disadvantages of an online survey is this dispersion I was telling you just about a couple of minutes ago, like this. Did the respondent answered our survey having the local context in mind, or having the federal context in mind? This is really something we can't measure, but we can really think that this might have blurred the picture. And what is the main disadvantage of an online survey is that there are no consensus building steps around this maturity assessment. I would say that such an online survey could be useful to take a picture, which is actually what our aim was. But it should be part of a broader participatory process. And our hypothesis is that maybe if you were in a more centralized country, I don't know exactly about Poland, where they did perform this national survey, maybe this could make sense, because all the people would perhaps talk about the same maturity assessment, and not our 26 maturity assessments process like in Switzerland. So I'll be happy to share your questions afterwards.